The forest was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that made every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs feel like a thunderclap. It wasn't supposed to be this way. The planet, designated X-47c by Earth's explorers, had been described in mission logs as teeming with life, an alien jungle so vibrant it practically hummed with energy. But now it felt dead, like the air itself was holding its breath. Daxton Reed adjusted his backpack, the weight of supplies digging into his shoulders. He'd volunteered for this solo mission under the guise of scientific exploration, but if he were honest, it was more about proving something to himself than advancing humanity's knowledge. Daxton wasn't a soldier or an adventurer. He was just a xenobiologist who spent most of his time staring at petri dishes back on Earth. Yet here he was, trudging through unfamiliar terrain, armed with nothing but a scanner, a plasma cutter, and a healthy dose of curiosity. As he pushed aside another curtain of moss-covered vines, his boots sank slightly into the damp ground. A faint sound caught his attention. A soft whimper, almost imperceptible beneath the ambient noise of the wind whispering through the trees. At first, Daxton thought it might be some small creature, maybe injured or trapped. But then he heard it again, clearer this time. Help! His heart skipped a beat. That voice, it didn't belong to any animal catalogued in the galactic database. It sounded human, or at least humanoid, but softer, smoother, with a melodic undertone that sent shivers down his spine. Without thinking twice, Daxton veered off the path he'd been following, stepping over roots and ducking under low-hanging branches until he reached the source of the cry. What he found stopped him cold. In a clearing bathed in dappled sunlight filtering through the canopy above, there she stood, or rather hung. An alien woman, breathtakingly beautiful, suspended mid-air by what appeared to be some sort of hunter's trap. Thin wires crisscrossed her body, binding her arms tightly to her sides and pinning her legs together. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, catching the light in ways that made her seem otherworldly. Long tendrils of hair cascaded down her back, glowing faintly with hues of violet and blue. She turned her head slowly toward him, revealing eyes that weren't quite eyes, more like pools of swirling galaxies, deep and endless. For a moment, neither of them moved. Daxton could feel his pulse pounding in his ears, unsure whether to approach or retreat. Was this a trick? Some elaborate ruse designed to lure unsuspecting travelers into danger? But then she spoke again, her voice echoing softly despite the lack of amplification. "Please," she said, her tone tinged with desperation. "I cannot free myself." Her words jolted him into action. Setting his pack down carefully, Daxton approached cautiously, keeping one hand near the plasma cutter strapped to his belt. Up close, he realized the wires weren't ordinary. They pulsed faintly, emitting a low hum that resonated in his chest. Whoever, or whatever, had set this trap clearly knew their business. "I'm going to help you," he murmured, though he wasn't sure if she understood him. "Just hold still." She tilted her head slightly, studying him with those mesmerizing eyes. "You are not one of them," she said finally, her voice carrying both relief and curiosity. "Who are you?" "Daxton," he replied, fumbling with the settings on his plasma cutter. "And you are?" "Aaron," she answered simply, wincing as the wires tightened momentarily around her torso. "Of the Velani." Before Daxton could ask what a Velani was, the trap emitted a sharp crackle, startling them both. Sparks flew from the wires, and Aaron let out a pained gasp. Panic surged through Daxton as he realized the mechanism was reacting to his presence, or perhaps sensing his intent to interfere. "Stay calm," he urged, raising his hands instinctively even though they trembled. "I'll figure this out." Aaron gave a strained nod, her gaze never leaving his face. There was trust there, unwavering and unexpected, given their circumstances. Daxton swallowed hard, trying to focus. This wasn't just about cutting wires anymore. It was about saving someone who seemed far more extraordinary than anything he'd ever encountered. With steady hands, he activated the plasma cutter, aiming the beam at the nearest wire. The tool sizzled as it sliced through the material, releasing a burst of energy that sent Daxton stumbling backward. Aaron cried out, her body jerking involuntarily as the remaining wires began to retract violently. "No!" Daxton shouted, scrambling forward again. Ignoring the stinging sensation in his palms where he'd fallen, he worked faster, slicing through wire after wire until the last one snapped loose. Aaron collapsed into his arms, her weight surprisingly light despite her imposing appearance. For a moment, all he could do was stare at her, marveling at how delicate she felt compared to the power radiating from her presence. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Then, before he could respond, her fingers closed around his wrist with surprising strength. "Do not let go." Daxton blinked, confused. "What? You must not release me," Aaron insisted, her expression grave. "If you do, I fear I will vanish." Vanish? What did that even mean? Before Daxton could question her further, the forest around them erupted in chaos. The ground shook violently, sending tremors rippling through the earth. Trees swayed dangerously, their branches snapping like brittle bones. From the shadows emerged figures, tall, hulking creatures clad in armor that gleamed menacingly in the dim light. They carried weapons that looked primitive yet deadly, their movements fluid and predatory. "Oh no," Daxton muttered under his breath, tightening his grip on Aaron instinctively. "This day just keeps getting better." One of the hunters barked something in a guttural language, pointing a spear-like weapon directly at them. Aaron tensed, her luminous eyes narrowing as she glared at the newcomers. Whatever these beings were, they clearly meant harm. "Run," Aaron commanded sharply, tugging on Daxton's arm. "Now." Without hesitation, Daxton obeyed, pulling her along as they sprinted deeper into the forest. Branches clawed at their faces, and roots threatened to trip them at every step, but neither dared slow down. Behind them, the hunters gave chase, their roars reverberating through the trees. "This is insane," Daxton panted, dodging a low-hanging branch. "Why are they after you?" "They seek my essence," Aaron replied cryptically, her breathing ragged but steady. "It grants great power to those who possess it." "Your essence," Daxton echoed, incredulous. "What does that even?" A searing bolt of energy whizzed past his ear, singeing the fabric of his jacket. Aaron yanked him sideways, forcing him to dive behind a cluster of thick bushes. The hunters stormed past, their heavy footsteps shaking the ground. "We need a plan," Daxton hissed, peering cautiously through the foliage. "We can't keep running forever." Aaron glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Trust me," she said softly, "and do not let go." Despite the absurdity of the situation, Daxton found himself nodding. Somehow, against all logic, he believed her. And as the hunters circled back, closing in on their hiding spot, he braced himself for whatever came next. The hunters were relentless, their pursuit unyielding as they stalked through the dense foliage. Every snap of a twig or rustle of leaves seemed to echo tenfold, making it nearly impossible for Daxton and Aaron to move without drawing attention. Crouched behind a fallen tree trunk, Daxton tried to formulate a plan, but his mind raced with too many variables. These weren't just mindless beasts, they were intelligent, organized, and armed. Worse still, Aaron's cryptic warnings about her essence left him with more questions than answers. "What do you mean, they seek your essence?" Daxton whispered urgently, keeping one eye on the approaching shadows. "Are we talking literal magic here, or is this some kind of alien metaphor I don't understand?" Aaron hesitated, her glowing eyes flickering like distant stars. "My people, we are born of celestial energies," she explained haltingly, as if choosing her words carefully. "Our very existence is tied to the cosmos. To capture us, to extract our essence, is to wield unimaginable power." Daxton stared at her, dumbfounded. "So you're saying you're basically walking space batteries?" Her lips twitched faintly, almost forming a smile. "In crude terms, yes." "Well, that explains why they're so eager to catch you," he muttered, gripping his plasma cutter tighter. "But it doesn't explain why you won't let go of my hand." Aaron's grip tightened reflexively, her fingers cool against his skin. "Because you anchor me," she said simply. "When I am bound to another being, especially one not of my kind, the connection disrupts their ability to track me. Without you, they would have found me already." Daxton blinked, processing this revelation. "Wait, so I'm like, your human shield?" "In a manner of speaking," Aaron admitted, her tone laced with both gratitude and guilt. "I apologize for involving you in this. You did not ask for such peril." "No kidding," Daxton shot back, though there was no real venom in his voice. If anything, he felt strangely exhilarated. This wasn't exactly how he'd envisioned his first field expedition turning out, but it was certainly memorable. "Okay, new plan. We can't outrun them forever, and I doubt my plasma cutter can take out all 6 of those guys. Any bright ideas?" Erin tilted her head thoughtfully, her gaze scanning their surroundings. "There is a place nearby, a sanctuary hidden within the forest. If we reach it, they cannot follow." "Great. Lead the way," Daxton said, already rising to his feet. "It is not so simple," Erin countered, pulling him back down. "The path is treacherous, and once begun, there is no turning back. Are you prepared to risk everything to protect me?" Daxton hesitated, weighing the gravity of her question. On one hand, he barely knew this woman, or whatever she was, and dragging himself further into danger seemed monumentally stupid. On the other hand, abandoning her felt equally unthinkable. There was something about Erin that transcended logic, a magnetic pull he couldn't ignore. Whether it was her ethereal beauty, her mysterious nature, or simply the fact that she trusted him completely, Daxton knew he wouldn't leave her side. "Let's do it," he said firmly, meeting her gaze. "Just tell me where to go." Erin nodded, her expression softening. "Follow me closely. Do not let go." With that, she led him out from behind the tree trunk, moving swiftly and silently through the underbrush. The hunters roared in frustration as they realized their prey had slipped away again, but Erin navigated the forest with an uncanny sense of direction, weaving between trees and leaping over obstacles with grace that defied explanation. Daxton struggled to keep up, his lungs burning and muscles screaming in protest, but he refused to loosen his grip on her hand. After what felt like hours, but was likely only minutes, they arrived at a massive wall of vines blocking their path. The tangled mass stretched high into the canopy, impenetrable at first glance. Erin paused, placing her free hand against the greenery. A faint glow emanated from her palm, spreading outward until the vines began to part, revealing a narrow tunnel beyond. "This is it," she whispered, turning to face him. "Once inside, we will be safe, but only if you maintain contact." "Got it," Daxton replied, swallowing nervously. "No letting go." "Check." Together, they stepped into the tunnel, the vines closing behind them with an eerie finality. The air inside was cooler, tinged with the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic and electric. The passage twisted and turned unpredictably, forcing them to navigate blindly in near-total darkness. Daxton relied entirely on Erin's guidance, trusting her instincts implicitly. "Are we there yet?" he quipped half-heartedly after what felt like an eternity. "Patience," Erin chided gently, though her tone betrayed a hint of amusement. "We are close." Suddenly, the tunnel opened up into a vast cavern illuminated by bioluminescent plants clinging to the walls and ceiling. The sight took Daxton's breath away. Glowing fungi cast shifting patterns of light across the floor, while crystalline formations jutted upward like frozen waves. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal carved from obsidian, pulsating faintly with the same celestial energy Erin seemed to embody. "This is the sanctuary," Erin announced, leading him toward the pedestal. "Here we may rest, but not for long. They will find a way to breach the barrier eventually." Daxton frowned, glancing around warily. "How long do we have?" "Hours, perhaps less," Erin replied grimly. "But we must use this time wisely. Tell me, Daxton, are you familiar with the concept of resonance?" He blinked, caught off guard by the sudden change in topic. Vaguely. Like sound waves matching frequencies or something." "Precisely," Erin said, her eyes gleaming with intensity. "My essence operates on a similar principle. By synchronizing our energies, we can create a temporary shield strong enough to repel even the hunters. However, achieving such harmony requires complete trust and vulnerability." Daxton scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. "So, what does that involve exactly?" Erin stepped closer, her luminous gaze locking onto his. It involves sharing a part of yourself, your memories, your emotions, your soul. Are you willing to open yourself to me? The question hung in the air, heavy and loaded with implications. Daxton hesitated, torn between instinctive caution and the undeniable connection he felt with Aaron. Finally he nodded, steeling himself for whatever came next. "All right," he said quietly. "Let's do it." Aaron placed her free hand over his heart, her touch sending a jolt of warmth coursing through his body. "Close your eyes," she instructed softly, "and think of something meaningful to you." Obediently, Daxton closed his eyes, allowing his thoughts to drift. Images flooded his mind. Childhood memories of exploring tide pools with his father, late-night conversations with his sister, the thrill of discovering a new species in the lab. Each memory carried its own weight, its own emotional resonance, and he focused on them intently, letting Aaron guide him deeper. As the moments passed, he became aware of a strange sensation. Not pain, but something akin to pressure, as if invisible threads were weaving themselves around his consciousness. Slowly, tentatively, he opened his eyes, and gasped. Erin's form shimmered before him, her silver skin now translucent, revealing intricate patterns of light flowing beneath the surface. Their joined hands pulsed with energy, creating a glowing tether that connected them physically and metaphysically. Around them, the cavern responded, the bioluminescent plants flaring brighter as if feeding off their shared resonance. "It is working," Erin murmured, all evident in her voice. "You are stronger than I anticipated." "Yeah, well, don't get used to it," Daxton joked weakly, though his knees felt like jelly. "This whole soul-sharing thing isn't exactly covered in the Xenobiology handbook." Erin smiled, a genuine expression of warmth that made her look even more radiant. "Perhaps not. But it is remarkable nonetheless." Before either of them could say more, a deafening crash echoed through the cavern. The hunters had breached the outer barrier, their guttural shouts growing louder as they closed in. Erin's smile vanished, replaced by steely determination. "The shield will hold for now," she said quickly, releasing his hand and stepping toward the pedestal. "But we must prepare for battle. Stay close, Daxton. Together, we stand a chance." Daxton clenched his fists, adrenaline surging through him once more. "Right behind you." As the hunters poured into the cavern, weapons raised and snarls filling the air, Erin raised her arms, summoning a cascade of energy that crackled like lightning. The fight was far from over, but for the first time since stepping foot on X-47C, Daxton felt ready. The cavern erupted into chaos as the hunters charged forward, their weapons sparking with lethal intent. Erin stood resolute, her slender frame radiating an aura of raw power that defied her delicate appearance. With a swift motion, she unleashed a wave of energy that sent the lead hunter sprawling backward, his armor scorched and smoking. Daxton gaped at her display of strength, momentarily forgetting the danger they were in. "Wow," he breathed, clutching his plasma cutter nervously. "Didn't know you had that in you." "There is much you do not know," Erin replied tersely, her focus unwavering as she summoned another burst of energy. "Now assist me." Snapping out of his awe, Daxton jumped into action. Dodging a spear aimed at his head, he fired a concentrated beam from his plasma cutter, striking one of the hunters squarely in the chest. The creature stumbled, roaring in pain, but recovered quickly, its movements unnervingly fast. Daxton cursed under his breath, realizing their opponents were far tougher than he'd anticipated. "Any tips on taking these guys down?" he shouted over the din, narrowly avoiding a swipe from a jagged blade. "Target their joints," Erin called back, spinning gracefully to evade another attack. "Their armor is weakest there." "Got it." Daxton adjusted his aim, zeroing in on the exposed areas of the nearest hunter. His shot hit true, disabling the creature's knee joint and sending it crashing to the ground. Encouraged by the small victory, he pressed forward, firing repeatedly as Erin continued to unleash devastating bursts of energy. But the hunters were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. Just when Daxton thought they'd gained the upper hand, reinforcements poured into the cavern, flooding the space with armored bodies and flashing weapons. Erin faltered briefly, her energy reserves visibly draining, and Daxton felt a surge of panic. "We can't keep this up forever," he yelled, fending off another attacker with desperate swings of his plasma cutter. We need a backup plan. Erin's eyes darted toward the obsidian pedestal, her expression hardening with resolve. There is one option left, she said grimly. But it comes at great cost. What are you talking about? Daxton demanded, parrying a blow with the butt of his weapon. The pedestal contains ancient technology, capable of generating a temporal rift, Erin explained hurriedly, her voice strained. It will scatter our enemies across time and space, rendering them powerless to pursue us. However, activating it requires channeling immense energy, and someone must remain behind to stabilize the process. Daxton froze, the weight of her words sinking in. Wait, you mean, one of us has to stay here? Alone? Yes, Erin confirmed, her gaze unwavering. And it must be me. No way. Daxton protested, shaking his head vehemently. Absolutely not. I'm not leaving you here to face this alone. You must, Erin insisted, her voice firm despite the fatigue etched on her features. You are not equipped to handle the strain of stabilizing the rift. Your survival ensures mine, if only indirectly. That's insane, Daxton argued, desperation creeping into his tone. There has to be another way. There isn't, Erin snapped, her patience wearing thin. Do you think I want this? Do you think I relish the idea of being separated from you? But I chose to trust you, Daxton, and now I need you to trust me. Her words struck a chord deep within him, silencing his protests. As much as he hated the idea of leaving her behind, he couldn't deny the truth in her reasoning. She was right, he didn't have the strength or knowledge to stabilize the rift. And if staying behind meant ensuring her safety, then she would do it without hesitation. Fine, Daxton relented, his voice cracking with emotion. But promise me one thing. What is it? Erin asked, her expression softening. Promise me you'll find a way back, he said fiercely, gripping her hand tightly. No matter what happens, promise me you won't give up. Erin smiled faintly, her luminous eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I promise. With that, she turned toward the pedestal, her movements deliberate and purposeful. Daxton watched helplessly as she placed her hands on its surface, her body glowing brighter with each passing second. The cavern began to tremble, the bioluminescent plants flaring wildly as the temporal rift began to form. Streams of light spiraled outward, engulfing the hunters and scattering them into oblivion. Go! Erin commanded, her voice barely audible over the roaring energy. Now! Daxton hesitated, torn between obeying her orders and staying by her side. But before he could make a decision, the rift expanded rapidly, pulling him toward its vortex. He fought against the force, reaching out desperately for Erin, but the pull was too strong. Their fingers brushed briefly, a fleeting connection before he was yanked away, tumbling through the kaleidoscope of light and shadow. When the world finally stabilized, Daxton found himself lying on the forest floor, the sounds of battle replaced by an eerie silence. He sat up groggily, his heart pounding as he scanned the area. Erin was nowhere to be seen. No, he whispered, his chest tightening with grief. Erin! But there was no response, only the whisper of the wind through the trees. Clutching his plasma cutter, Daxton rose to his feet, determination blazing in his eyes. She had promised to find a way back, and he intended to hold her to that promise. With renewed resolve, he set off into the forest, vowing to uncover the secrets of the pedestal and bring Erin home, no matter the cost. Daxton's journey back to the pedestal was fraught with uncertainty. The forest seemed even darker now, its vibrant hues muted as if mourning Erin's sacrifice. Every step he took felt heavier than the last, not just from exhaustion but from the crushing weight of guilt and grief. Yet, amidst the turmoil, a flicker of hope burned within him, a stubborn ember refusing to be extinguished. Erin had promised she would find a way back, and Daxton clung to that promise like a lifeline. When he finally reached the cavern, it was eerily silent. The bioluminescent plants still glowed faintly, but their light was dimmer, almost mournful. The obsidian pedestal stood at the center, cold and unyielding, its surface etched with intricate patterns that pulsed faintly with residual energy. Daxton approached it cautiously, his mind racing with questions. How could he reverse what Erin had done? Could the rift be reopened without endangering her further? As he examined the pedestal, he noticed something he hadn't before, a series of glyphs carved into its base. They shimmered faintly, responding to his touch when he traced them with his fingers. A memory surfaced, one of Aaron explaining the concept of resonance. By synchronizing our energies, her words echoed in his mind, sparking an idea. If the rift required immense energy to activate, perhaps it also required energy, his energy, to stabilize and reopen. But how? He wasn't Vailani. He didn't possess celestial essence or glowing skin. Still, Aaron had said their connection was unique, that his humanity somehow amplified her abilities. Maybe, just maybe, their bond could work both ways. Taking a deep breath, Daxton placed his hands on the pedestal, mimicking Aaron's earlier stance. He closed his eyes and focused, recalling every moment they'd shared, the trust in her gaze, the warmth of her touch, the way her voice had resonated with his soul. Slowly, tentatively, he poured all of himself into the effort, willing the rift to respond. At first, nothing happened. Doubt crept in, whispering cruel truths about his limitations. But then, the pedestal began to hum softly, vibrating beneath his palms. The glyphs flared to life, casting intricate patterns of light across the cavern walls. Encouraged, Daxton pushed harder, channeling every ounce of determination and emotion he possessed. The air around him grew thick with energy, crackling like static electricity. The ground trembled, and the rift began to form once more, swirling with colors that defied description. Daxton gritted his teeth, fighting against the strain as the vortex expanded. Just when he thought he couldn't hold on any longer, a figure emerged from the chaos, ethereal, radiant, and unmistakably Aaron. She stumbled forward, her silver skin shimmering weakly, but alive. Daxton caught her before she fell, his arms wrapping around her protectively. For a moment, neither spoke, simply holding on to each other as the rift collapsed behind them, leaving only silence in its wake. "You came back," Daxton murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "I told you I would," Aaron replied softly, though her tone carried a hint of weariness. "But how did you manage this?" "You gave me faith," Daxton admitted, brushing a strand of luminescent hair from her face. "And apparently, I'm full of surprises." Aaron smiled faintly, her galaxy-like eyes reflecting gratitude and admiration. "You are extraordinary, Daxton Reed." The two remained in the cavern for some time, allowing Aaron to recover while Daxton recounted everything that had transpired after the rift scattered the hunters. Though weakened, Aaron assured him the temporal disruption had neutralized their pursuers, buying them precious time. "We cannot stay here," Aaron said eventually, rising to her feet with renewed strength. "The sanctuary is compromised, and my presence will draw others who seek my essence. We must leave this place." "Where will we go?" Daxton asked, slinging his pack over his shoulder. "To the stars," Aaron replied, her voice filled with quiet resolve. "There is a hidden enclave among my people, a refuge where we can begin anew. Together." Daxton hesitated, realizing the enormity of what she was proposing. Leaving Earth behind wasn't part of his original plan, but neither was befriending an alien woman capable of bending time and space. Life had a funny way of rewriting expectations. "All right," he said finally, offering her a lopsided grin. "But you're going to have to teach me how to pronounce Vailani correctly first." Aaron laughed, the sound echoing melodiously through the cavern. "Deal." Their journey to the Enclave was long and challenging, requiring them to navigate treacherous terrain and evade remnants of the hunter clans. Along the way, their bond deepened, forged not only by shared peril but by moments of levity and discovery. Aaron marveled at Daxton's quirky sense of humor, while he found endless fascination in her tales of celestial origins and cosmic mysteries. When they finally arrived at the Enclave, a breathtaking floating city suspended within a nebula, they were greeted as heroes. Aaron's people welcomed her home with open arms, celebrating her survival and honoring Daxton's role in protecting her. It was a strange yet beautiful existence, one that blended advanced technology with ancient traditions. Daxton quickly adapted, earning respect not just as Aaron's companion but as a bridge between worlds. In time, the two became inseparable, their connection transcending species and culture. Together, they worked to preserve the balance between civilizations, ensuring that no one would exploit the power of the Velani again. And though challenges lay ahead, they faced them side by side, united by love, trust, and an unshakable belief in the possibilities of the universe. Years later, as they stood together on a balcony overlooking the shimmering expanse of the nebula, Daxton turned to Aaron with a mischievous smile. "You know, I never thought I'd end up married to an intergalactic goddess. And I never thought I'd meet someone brave enough to stand beside me," Aaron replied, leaning into his embrace. "Life is unpredictable, isn't it?" "It sure is," Daxton agreed, gazing out at the infinite horizon. "But I wouldn't trade it for anything." Hand in hand, they watched as the stars danced in the eternal night, their hearts intertwined as surely as the cosmos themselves. Years later, as they stood on a balcony overlooking the nebula, Daxton grinned at Aaron. "Still think I'm just a clumsy human?" Aaron laughed softly, her luminous eyes reflecting the stars. "You were never just anything." Their bond had grown stronger with time, proof that love could bridge even galaxies. The Enclave thrived under their guidance, a testament to unity and hope. As they gazed at the endless cosmos, Aaron whispered, "Thank you for believing in me." "Always," Daxton replied, squeezing her hand. "We're a team, remember?" Together, they turned back toward the glowing city, ready to face whatever came next. In each other's presence, they'd found not just refuge, but purpose. And so, beneath the eternal stars, their story became legend, a tale of courage, connection, and destiny fulfilled.